Most people on planet Earth don't actually talk about the things that are important. And then they wonder why things don't change. They talk about the things that they know. You know, you've started this recently, you haven't even been in the groups. And you've already established that just by you talking to your immediate circle about the things that you are dealing with, it guides you, it opens up something that provides serious relief. Most people on planet Earth don't do what they love. Not only do they not do what they love, they don't even do what they're good at. Do you know why?
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
They're too afraid of being rejected. Most people are still protecting themselves from things in their childhood. And they haven't even changed their behavior. Their behavior has just become the same thing with different names. And that's called hell, by the way, because their life hasn't changed. And you know, it's like, well, how do you know somebody hasn't changed? I think it's pretty easy. You ever hung out with a guy that's like, even though they're married and have kids and they work a job, they're still like an emotional baby? They've never really put anything real out there. They've put everything that was accepted by their initial environment. Their initial environment, they're a product of. You want to see your beauty, you want to see your grace, you want to see your capacity, you want to see your strength, you want to see your potential. Well, it's outside of that. And I think that these conversations need a lot of nuance. And what you're providing here is the beginning of change. It is talking about the things that don't make you seem like you're the 24-year-old that knows it all. You are not. You're not. Well, fuck, right? Nobody is. So you're real. Well, now you're incorporating truth in your life. Is that changing the way that people see you, Max?
For sure. And it's crazy that I'm noticing a very clear reciprocity from the other people. Like, there are friends that I've had for a year, 2 years, I'll speak to them and like talk to them about like just the things that are actually happening in my life. And the fact that I'm communicating without really any filter on it, they're telling me things about themselves where I'm like, I have no idea. I've known you for 2 years, I did not know that. And it's one of those things where like the second I start opening up, other people start communicating in a real way as well.
Excellent. Well, Max, we're going to get back to this. I wanted to go ahead and talk with Peter a little bit. Peter's very learned, so it's a pleasure having you here.
Great, thank you. As a realtor in my 6th year renewal, I'm doing some acts of service where I take families with distressed housing, and maybe there's the loss of a grandparent or something. They end up having the siblings, like 5 or 6 people, having to sell a house, and I get some funding for them. I get the roof done or the furnace, and then I help them sell it for a profit. And it's an act of, it's like a mission of God. But it's also using my body still physically as a remodeler. I don't really see the capacity of where I'm leaving a legacy for my life. I'm 64 years old. So I have a passion for sculpture. I have a passion to write a book, and I'm still swinging a paintbrush or hand banging nails. And also women come to me and they say, oh, I need you to fix this at my house, and the fence fell down. And I have trouble saying no. I keep going out of my center in feeling like from not being enough, wanting to be acknowledged, wanting to be given words of affirmation, wanting people to tell everybody around town that Peter's a great guy, instead of me just knowing that I'm a great guy.
Wow.
And I'm writing a book, and that I have a great sculpture career ahead of me in my retirement. And so I'm selling a house I'm about to inherit, $250,000 or more, and I don't want to just keep making the same mistakes, going into bed literally with damaged women. I want somebody who's going to be right by my side, that's just as strong and capable and honor me and my talents. And I keep freaking underselling myself. I'm like 64 and taking NAD and HGH and freaking trying to be the guy that I used to be, but it's still trying to cover something up. I'm trying to patch up the holes and just be enough instead of soar and sing my song.
That's beautiful. So I wanted to go ahead and show that, Peter, thank you so much for, that was the most real you've ever been with me. Just letting you know that. I want you to identify that. There was no, I do all these things. It was, I struggle with this. You struggle with belief. You know, and how do you know somebody's struggling with these? Look at their life. Look at their dating habits, right? You serial date, right? You invest, nothing. Invest, nothing. And that's the same thing with your belief, right? The relationship itself is not based off any foundation. And that's exactly the problem. So there's no belief in it. And this is something very interesting with serial dating, is that even for me, who's been caught up in it, you start to realize the value of what you give. And I think that's exactly what you're missing. And how do you know that? Well, just look at your dating history. It'll say a lot about you. And I think it's going to really wake a lot of you guys up in relationship to the partners that you're with, which is what we're really going to be specifying on today. Because there's no question about it. I don't think most people have actually developed belief in their life. They're still circling and cycling around metrics of control that they've made up. And the worst part is that yes, you get older. And if Peter can be here as anything, it could be an embodiment of what happens when you don't reinforce belief. That even at 64, it didn't come. The ability to say, I'm not fixing your fence. No, I'm done dating emotionally unstable women. I want to become stable myself. You understand that this all starts with you and ends with you. And here's the crazy part. I had a few Ubers, because I'm not in town at the moment. I'm in Arizona. And there were all the people that I met. Can I tell you what they all had in common? None of their problems were theirs. They didn't do it. I sit on a plane and there's this beautiful girl there. And I'll tell you who she was later, but it was very interesting when I first met her. She starts telling me about all this narcissistic abuse she had. And how for 50 years, she was 50. I've never met a better looking 50-year-old in my life. I didn't think she was 50 at all. I thought there was 37 tops. And she was telling me about all these relationships she's been in and how, all of them were narcissistic. And at this point, she's just given up, And I was like, oh, interesting. And I said, are you sure you're not the other one? And she's like, what? The other narcissist. And she's like, oh, I've done so much work. And she lists all these fucking coaches out that people jerk off to. She has made about this much change. And so nobody asked her the real question, which is the question I asked her. What's your relationship like with sex? Lo and behold, there are two things that came to mind. I said she either has an OnlyFans or she's a porn star. Because if you're going to attract that many narcissists, there's something that you're doing and a need for attention that is completely and totally exploiting you, which is why the guys are completely and totally exploiting you in the relationships. And so she told me her name. It was Olivia. No, it wasn't. And she hits me up saying, it was so nice meeting you. By the way, is that your real name? So that told me everything I needed to know. I look up her number, because if she's asking if that's my real name, Olivia is probably not your real name, or vice versa. I look it up, and her porn star name comes up. And I'm like, this makes a lot more sense. You know what I find is really interesting? That people often hide the one thing that's ruining their life from people, but when it gets called out, not only will they shut down and resort to every protective mechanism possible, they will look at you as the enemy. That's what you guys are forgetting here. That even the salvation that you pray for, you will project onto them the things that you are. And that's not fair. And I notice this happens for a lot of people in coaching. If you're not fully committed in the change itself, you will not take accountability for the things that you project onto others that you truly are. And it's scary to say the least, but it's really damn easy to do because it's so damn convenient and you don't need to change. So you guys are going to be identifying a few things. The convenience of your blame and the implications of if you took accountability for the things that you're not. This is one aspect of things. Now, what was also interesting is I got in an Uber later and everybody that I talked to that was a guy was all talking about how they wanted to make money and how they wanted to get married and be in a healthy relationship. None of those guys were emotionally aware. And every girl that I got in a car with that was an Uber driver all talked about how they were victims of narcissistic abuse and they're giving up on relationships, and pasties and raves are going to be the next alternative. And so you kind of go, okay, well, this is very interesting, A1, most people don't question the integrity of their own life, which is why they're just going to be left with what they have. And if that's not meaningful to you, then what do you have to lose? Genuinely ask yourself that question. It will start changing the way that you think and your pursuits. And I'll actually start giving you more value in the things that you do pursue because you won't attach your value to it. This was just something in just what I've been seeing lately. And not only have I been seeing that lately, I've had calls with all of you guys, and I could tell you one thing. Are you really open to that kind of change? And I want you to be honest with yourself. Are you? Ask yourself a question. What about me enjoys where I'm at?
Could you repeat the question?
What about me enjoys where I'm at? What about me oddly enjoys it? I want you to find that. Whether or not you do on a conscious level. Make something up if you can even. It's going to give you something to think about, right? Which is what you guys need a lot of, Socratic questioning, Well, I'm not going to change you. You guys will voluntarily take that upon yourself. Choice is scary. Go for it, Alessandra. Did you want to ask something? You can do that at any point, by the way. If you want to put your hand up, you can put your hand up. I'd much rather we interact with each other and then I give the guideline as we go. Alessandro, did you have something?
No, I mean, I think that's this, let's say, conversation actually came quite of the right moment for me, because I mean, I told you, I'm trying to change also, job. I mean, trying to make some considerable change, and for some reasons, I wonder why I'm always, let's say, quite confused about the next steps.
Mm-hmm.
And I also look some friends who actually made a decision, and the sacrifice they did, but also where they arrived. And I do recognize that, yes, I think sometimes I enjoy, let's say, being stuck, because it doesn't make me to take action, and then I can somehow, say, oh, that's how it could be, but then it didn't happen,
So
it's, let's say, it's comfortable, let's say, being here.
Well, not only, see, comfortable is a blanket statement that doesn't really allow you to change either, because it's just generalized, right? You need to be specific about what it is. If you actually started doing what you were doing, you would have to do far more about putting yourself out there, and that scares a lot of people because it's in relationship to rejection. And this is we're going to make this a little more, we're going to keep going through this. So I wanted to go ahead and talk to Ravi, and then we're going to go to Nova, and then Alessandro, you can go ahead and run that through from there. So Ravi, what's happened recently? I know that you went on your adventure and discovered how getting rejected is terminally, by the way, which I find is so interesting, getting rejected for most people is like the scariest thing on planet Earth, but it's also the most healing.
Yeah.
Really, that's all this is. You're just going to realize how deep it goes.
Well, for the context, I mean, I have almost non-existent social life. I don't go out, and I'm working from home, so I don't literally have to go out for anything. All my workout stuff is at home. So this year I decided that I will go on a group trip with strangers, and despite being the fact that I mean, I had some argument with the hotel staff there, and I mean, I came back from the trip, but
what did you get the argument about?
So there was a single guy and a single girl. They wanted to stay together in a room, and I mean, I thought that it's okay, but the situation escalated so much that the hotel staff was actually throwing out that guy and the girl in the middle of the night, and it was 2 a.m.
Okay.
And it is a really remote area where those people will go, and no one in our group, because we were all strangers, were speaking anything, and I was a little high at that time. So, but I mean, it was really bad. So I was speaking to them that why you are throwing them out. Like,
yeah.
At least don't let them stay in the same room, but don't throw them out. I mean, that's reasonable. So they started pointing fingers on me that why you are the only one getting bothered by this. And eventually they let that guy and the girl stay. But eventually I realized that I got over-triggered by that event. And I exactly remembered the incident that it reminded me. So you
just find that interesting. So this is also very important. There's a reason why intentional rejection actually gets you somewhere, and why most people don't get anywhere, because they're not making the intention to see what it brings up. Everything that you confront in the present is a mirror image of the past. People want to confront their trauma with ayahuasca, MDMA, hypnotherapy, but holy shit, they'd rather do anything than show up for their life. This is, by the way, across the board. It's across the board. I've worked with thousands of people. I'm only 24 years old, and I'll tell you one thing. It's no joke that less and less people are willing to do that, because they don't even have a belief system that this is even the right thing to do. You understand that, like, morality, values, those things will make you very, very good at this. You don't have those, you're just going to find another weapon to use against others. So that's also something I want to talk about with you, Ravi, which is your willingness to do this. What's the driving force? There's something that has to be bigger than yourself.
Well, I'm very reasonable, because I have tried every other thing. It doesn't work.
Well, here you are. Is this working?
Yeah, this is working, despite being the fact that this is possibly the worst trip that I could ever had. But I got to talk to at least 30 new people. Can you imagine? And I was the one who was talking to everyone.
That's
I
fucking
even
awesome. Wow, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you.
And while coming, it was a very, I know I came because I prioritized my ego, and I kind of justified it that why would I waste my specific office leave when the hotel staff is so much disrespectful. But I came back, and even like for such a silly incident, I even cried. You know, I mean, it may sound silly, but
Sounds
overall,
real.
I still feel that I that it really helps me to open up to deal with the things that I have been avoiding. It's like whatever trauma you face in your life, consciously or subconsciously, you will repeat it till the point you overcome. So even if those incidents were upsetting me, and like, for example, when I was really upset and two people asked me to have dinner because I was the only one who didn't eat that night, and I didn't wanted to eat at all. But then I realized that it is my ego that is stopping me. So when I really opened up for the change, so it is overwhelming and it is in fact very painful, but that's the only way. You avoid it, and then you will create a situation which will repeat that trauma till you heal it. So
Till you
it's
heal
like
it,
that.
there it goes, and there's no running. And I think that's the most important thing. It's going to be repeated either on a subconscious level or a conscious level. Let's make it conscious so that we can establish the beliefs that run it on a subconscious level. And that's going to be for you, Peter. And this is the way that you expose yourself to something that's real. You have to start presenting it intentionally because that's actually vulnerable. That's real. So, Nova, I wanted to go ahead and talk with you. And I wanted to hear a little bit about what you not only had on your mind, but some things from our initial conversation that we had that made you think a little differently.
I mean, in terms of just with all that's gone on in the last year, and I've kind of reached a point where I'm able to step back and look at it without as much emotion and think about it more logically and going off what we discussed. I mean, just so everyone understands where I'm coming from, what I went through. I was in a relationship for about 7 years. First girlfriend, went the traditional route, never traveled anywhere overnight, didn't stay anywhere together, kind of like your example of those two people. I don't know the traditional or the cultural issues, if any, existed there. And I had a lot of, I guess now in hindsight, repression of who I was, or who I thought I was, or who I wanted to be. Because I let myself be subject to a lot of unnecessary, well, I say abuse, but I think it's entirely, I guess going off our conversation, it felt like my own subconscious.
Yeah.
And I was kind of projecting that onto the person in front of me who was also mirroring back to me.
Yeah.
Because she had her own slew of issues, and I was trying to be there for her when I wasn't there for myself to begin.
Peter and you guys, it's this thing, by the way, if you don't confront it, it just keeps happening. I don't need to say it. I don't need to be 64. I have Peter over here. He can give you something I can't, which is years of experience that if you don't confront this is exactly what happens, right? So I told you something the other day, and it was, what are the aspects of yourself that you reject? I told that to a few of you when we had a call. And the same thing goes for you, Philip. There are parts of you that you keep in the shadows. Anything that you keep there is on a subconscious level. The smarter you are, the more you will manipulate people with that narrative, and the more you will project onto others that challenge you. Do you understand the dangers of that? You are fucking helpless, all right? Because your ego's got you on lock. It's under a bunker, and it's bulletproof. That's the whole problem. It's like, when they say like, yeah, ego gets in your way, and like, I really think people need to understand what it does. It creates narratives of protection and avoids particular people who will challenge that narrative of protection, and continues to grow in direct relationship to your personal experiences. So you think you're growing, but really the bubble you have is just getting bigger. And the contents are the same contents. Think about it this way. You just made a bigger pool that you still make circles in. You want the ocean. You want progress. You don't want the same conclusions. Think about it. Oh, so much growth. Look at me. Oh, wow. And then boom, same point. It would be better you were in a kiddie pool. At least you'd realize one turn, same fucking pool. Somebody help me, right? But of course, your own ego thrives off what other people think about you, not what's true, okay? The truth be told, what are we doing here? Brutal fucking honesty work. What does that take? a space by which you trust others, okay? You have the ability to trust others without being used or abused, you can make serious progress. I don't just exist on my own. I have a plethora of men behind me that allow me to stand straight with my shoulders back. I understand the value of that. There's nothing more valuable for that because it gives me an opportunity to be stronger each day so I can contribute more. This isn't hopeless altruism. So the question I asked was the aspects of yourself that you reject. You know, you look at that relationship, there were aspects of you that you hid. Your ego is going to paint a narrative. I want you to put that aside. I want you to look at your behaviors. That's going to tell me a lot about you. You follow, Nova?
Sorry, I'm just thinking about it. So I guess you're asking like what aspects of myself I was repressing, and I guess from our conversation, I guess I had been locking away my need for intimacy because I'm very much a people person. I don't like hiding away from those around me or who those I care about. And the nature of our dynamic, at least with this person whom I thought was supposed to be there for me in many ways, wasn't meeting those expectations. And instead of addressing those issues, I kept locking it away and putting it behind me and saying, things will get better. I'll struggle through it now. I can endure. I have seen people go through worse. And
I love that.
And turned into this vicious cycle over the course of years and years where I got to a point where the desire to meet that need completely disappeared, which is what I think finally broke me last year.
Yeah, well, you're coming back from what you call shutting down, right? Like somebody who shut down can't stand up for themselves. They can't, you lose, by the way, I had this happen to me when I did a 1.5 years of abstinence. I thought I was righteous, but I just found the off switch. I wasn't righteous. It's very easy to live a life of no sex. It's hard to live a life of you, very horny, with principles, values, and understanding what you want. That's fucking tough, right? Because now you're like, oh shit, I got the sex drive of a fucking polar bear and I can't, and I also really want to get married, you know? Well, now you have two relative things, meaning that you're in the refinement process. There's an ideal you strive towards and a thing that you lift against. So now that's bench press, isn't it? And that's what you need, right? Which is very scary, by the way, because you might not be accepted by your community. You might be rejected by your community for your behaviors and your actions. You might feel a lot of shame in presenting it to women in your community because you know you need to be a part of them in order to survive. And there's a lot of dependency, but it came at the cost of something so valuable, yourself. You. And what happened to me when I did a 1.5 years of no sex, I thought I was righteous. I went to porn, which is, of course, you know, going to be your good old savior. And the worst part about that is you're unconscious about it because guess what? You're protecting your ego protects you. You want to know what my narrative was? In a world like this, it's better to watch porn than it is to hook up with hoes. So I would jerk off to them. So it's like there's a lot of cognitive dissonance going on here, which made me chronically unaware until I started losing my hair. That'll wake you up. I had a really bad skin disease. That'll wake you up. What's a few other things that'll wake you up? Well, nightmares every night. That'll do it. And I asked myself a question. I said, where did this go? Where did this drive go? Where am I? Where did I go? And I lost my sense of humor. Everything became a philosophical, psychological question. Every time I met a woman, it became a checkbox. Every time I had a client, it became a robotic mechanism. I experienced this for 1.5 years to realize that I had nothing of value to lose. I had $200K in my account. I spent every dollar to find my soul back. You guys got to realize that if you want to know what's valuable, you better lose it. You know, and I think for you, for a lot of you guys, it's going to be in relationship to your body, your physicality, your sexuality, your principles, your values, your family, your friends. And I want to actualize the legitimacy of that. When I lost my sense of humor, that's when I was like, oh, we are fucked. I did a few things, which is very interesting. I picked up marijuana, and I was never somebody who smoked. And I would always make like a prayer on it, which is like bring up the parts of me that I've hidden, the cities that I've shut off. I'd freestyle, I'd rap. I was a controversial figure already. And most people were like, dude, when you're high, you're so amazing, right? And now what was I left with? My ego going, hey, something happens to you when you get high. Or there's something outside of that. Hey, buddy, you've repressed all of what you are. That's actually you. Show everybody that that's the truth. What did I feel after that? Fear, fear, fear. Because now I would have to start freestyling sober, approaching women and womanizing them like I did when I was high. I was a fucking animal. I didn't even know what I had access to. My storytelling ability made Matthew McConaughey look like he was chump change. And I didn't even know what was happening here. And of course, you know, all my brothers would say, dude, something comes out of you. And they would associate this split, that I was this dude sober and this dude high. And it was like, no, that's me without the fear of rejection. What do I need to do now? Well, I've seen it. Put it out there. Put the framework down. Well, I need to understand that I'm living with so much of me in the shadows. There's so much of me that I reject. You know, and I looked at that. How did I reinforce that world? I would judge everybody who was like me. I would see a guy freestyle and stumble. I'm like, dude, that was so cringy. Cross my arms, right? I'd see a guy approach a girl and use a bad line. What a fucking idiot. You're not supposed to do it that way. The hell that I lived in was unsurmountable. And, you know, I would talk about like how everybody would talk about, like even in the Uber driver that I was with today, he was talking about, you know, I'm 34, looking to make new changes. I'm waking up at 4:30. I'm working out. I'm meditating. And I was like, but what have you done? And the answer was like, he's not connected to anything he starts. He ends it, right? But that's also in the same relationship, two relationships. And also, you could also make it about you. And the second you make that about you, and Peter, if you're a serial dater and you make it about you, welcome to hell. And here's the reason. Well, that's a way for you to protect yourself from the fact that you're not even connected to those women. But it would be better that you don't confront the belief that makes you keep doing that and that you keep serial dating. And here's what happens. You make it about you, and that's what makes you do it again. There's your ego. If you didn't make it about you, you confront the belief that actually is not even in relationship to the dating at all. And that's the thing about understanding your own behaviors and the beliefs that you have about yourself, which is going to take me to the next part. I think that we're going to talk about dating for the next aspect of this. Nova, I see some like squinted eyebrows, some sort of confusion.
Not so much confusion, just reflecting on what you're saying.
Yeah. Do you know what ruined my life? Making it about me, right? You know, ruined it. Because you'll never understand yourself and you'll never understand others. So we won't have any point of reference by which you can build off of. So there is something very interesting in that you look at somebody who keeps doing the same thing over and over until eventually they do the same thing and go, I keep getting hurt. And it's like, wait, you're not confronting the belief because you keep making it about you and your personal experiences. Now, that takes a lot of letting go, doesn't it? That, if you guys want to know, the step one to all change is forgiveness. I had to forgive myself at 21 for dating a girl for a year and a half. Actually, at 22, for dating a girl for a year and a half, buying a rabbit, living a repressed life. You know, sex was on her watch. I never said what I really wanted. I repressed a lot of who I was when I was younger. And that's another thing for you is I want you guys, every single one of you, to go for it, Robbie?
Yeah, I'm a little confused. You said that we have to, like, you have to make it about you. So
No, don't make it. Okay, so there's you, and then there's you, right? So we often, there's you singular and you plural. The you plural is the more accurate representation of yourself. When often you have to make sure there's nuance here, so I appreciate that. Don't make it, if there's a cycle, don't make it about you. That's what makes you keep making the right turn. There's pain that you haven't processed and things that you haven't experienced that allow you to understand yourself and others, and it stops you from being naive. Every time I had the same, what was my circle with girls? It was meet them, very hot, very sexy, very good values, and that was a big thing for me, being able to integrate those two, beautiful and principled. And then we would progress, and then wall. Such a hard wall that with the speed I'm moving, it would knock me the fuck out. And at that point, I'm like, this is over. Typically, there is what you call in a relationship a point where you're not considering the fears of each other, which means that there's a lack of vulnerability, meaning you guys are forgetting this about relationships. There's not a demigod and then a person that follows. It sounds kinky and hot, but that's not how it works. It's two people developing with each other. It's a synergetic relationship. It's difficult to create that because you need to start doing the pace on your own. That means you got to start doing the shadow boxing before you're in the ring. And not many people want to do that because they're like, oh, I look stupid, right? And it's as simple as that. You know, we had somebody in the group chat say, you know, I can't make a fool of myself. I got my head chopped off. You weren't making a fool of yourself. A fool connects to his own behaviors for his own entertainment. Think about how powerful that is. That's a very difficult place to be, but that's also where you find the thing that's most authentic, to where you could start creating and building something that's real. And let's be real, there are some things we're not willing to negotiate. Maybe you're willing to work a job that pays you well, but you don't like that much. But fuck, if you do not have the sex that you like, start a war. If you don't feel safe with the woman that you're with and that you find attractive, start a war. And I'm saying this because there are some things that you will not give up on, because that means too damn much. Touch, big thing for you, Nova. Not met, shut it down, you disappear. Right now what we're dealing with is something interesting. There's the boat that you lead with, and then there's the boat you left behind. That's still sailing in another direction. You have to bring those two together if you want to start making what you call authentic choices. Most people are split. They're split in half from what they truly want. So rolling it back a little bit into that relationship, because I wanted to bring this up with you guys, that we're going to ask the most existential question possible. Am I enough for the woman that I desire fully? What comes to mind?
That's a good question.
This is an existential question.
Well, personally, I don't
Anybody?
think so.
I want there to be questions here. I want it to start ticking. Go for it, Philip.
Yeah, I have a question concerning this, because I feel like I oftentimes am in a situation that logically I can answer this question with yes, but then on a subconscious level there comes these doubts and I don't seem to get them under control, or they are pretty unreasonable on a logical level, but they won't disappear even though I basically know the answer.
Okay, so everybody usually has the conscious level yes, but then you wait a little bit and then shit floods up. And then you go, why does this matter? What's going on here? Why is this important? Okay, there are some things that happen that make me feel this hesitation to that. Now ask yourself another question. What do I hide in the face of that about me? And those are the parts of you that you don't own, that you repress, that you keep in the shadows, that you have no relationship with, that you meet with people you don't give a shit about. So you hide from the people you love and they do the same thing. Shocker. And you know what the worst thing in the whole world is? Have you guys ever seen a tragedy? You know what a tragedy is? Not when people suffer struggle, crisis, catastrophe, but when two people make the struggle about themselves in the midst of catastrophe and crisis. That's a tragedy. Two people, it's because of you, and it's because of you, and they have their backs turned against each other. That is hell. If you guys have ever experienced that, where you know, like you're talking with her, and then you pause for a second, and you're like seeing if she's talking to you, and they're like, there's no way in fucking hell she's making this about you. Like, how is that happening? That's the real tragedy. Unconsciousness is the real tragedy. You know, if you guys had let's just say theoretically, you had full access to all of who you are, and you could experience all of it, then what you're really in search of is the truth. You're not above struggle. You're not above crisis. What got me into this job is thinking that you could avoid pain and sadness. You know, I got a humility hit until I realized that pain and sadness are necessities for interacting with humanity as a whole. And I know I was becoming far more relatable. And I was like, well, why? And it's not like I was sharing with people like, you know, I feel lonely, I feel sad, I feel this. No, I actually was feeling those things. And so when I'd see people with it, I'd put an arm out. Like, I get it, man. You know, the rain all hits us in the face. But it doesn't mean that you should stop trying your best. I think that's what really makes your best count. So this is about opening up, really. Opening up to pain, insecurity, fear. I want it to come up. I couldn't do this on my own. No, but I promise you, like, the story that you said, the demons that haven't been confronted is a plethora of them. Yet it doesn't mean that you're not strong enough. They're your demons. You're, by the way, the only person that could fight them and beat them. And I think that's good. There's some sort of like, go for it.
So just because in our conversation I mentioned to you that I've been very self-reflective, I feel like a lot of the repressed issues I've kind of been aware of, I've just been choosing unconsciously not to deal with. Because I remember throughout my relationship with this person, I like to joke about this with people in my life now, that like I went through a lot of the things. For example, you went through, actually watched your video on relationships last night, where it's like you go through the phases. It's like the initial when you try to be proper, you try to be decent with the person, respect their position, and after a year you split. So you split for one reason, you go through your whole phase. I've had a lot of people suggest that to me. Like, no, but you should just go around, fuck around. I'm like, why would I do that? Because that's going to compromise an aspect of me I know I don't want to. So I feel like I have that foresight to not make that mistake, not to turn to vice. Like, I don't drink, or if I do, it's like once in a blue moon. I've never become completely inebriated. I don't smoke. Maybe I'm just guarding myself too much, and that kind of paralyzes me in the end. I think I want to loop in that idea you said of like people you don't know, you're more genuine with than the people you do care about.
Yeah.
I went to a wedding on Sunday. I knew maybe 4 people there aside from the groom himself. People were gravitating towards me because they were like, who is this guy? He's so much fun.
He's free. He's free from his own perception of himself. Think about how free you would be if you were free from the perception of yourself. Now, think about how much that would count if you shared that with people that you loved and knew.
Exactly.
Do you understand the tragedy? That's a tragedy, right? What I was talking about, that like 2 people with masks on making it about them. There's no connection there. That's where the loneliness is confirmed. In the behavior, it's confirmed there. You guys ever realize that? Like, if I was fully me, of course I would have the woman I desire. To the T! But then you half-ass your life, and then somebody asks the questions, and then your butt cheeks clench, and you go like this. Well, I mean, theoretically, under the possible spectrums, right? And then now you start intellectualizing everything, or on the other end, you just shut it down. So this is a very, very important thing for you, and even, you know, Philip, it kind of like works in relationship to what he's presenting here, right? Which is, for the people you don't care about, you're more yourself than the people that you're around. That's the tragedy of the 21st century, because you can meet your needs on a lens. I can convince anybody that I'm anything. That can make you devil-like when you find that out. But if you have no principles or values, which you do, which means, by the way, Nova, you have something in opposition. You have the desire to be an ape monkey. But you also, it doesn't connect with you because you connect with the ideal. But you're making the wrong choice, though. You're killing it. I need you to elevate it, right? So what most people do is, they have their dating, they commit, then hoe phase. Boom, split. What you're supposed to do is now incorporate the monkey into the intimate and the intimate into the monkey. Now that's how you transform appropriately. That's the Tarzan situation. You know, but does it work for some people? That was my life. You know, you have a relationship, you find out she blows your best friend, and then you're like, fuck this, here's the villain. But do you want to know what happens to that guy? If he doesn't integrate that, he marries a girl that treats him like shit. And I've seen it every damn time. Their wife is the manifestation of settled for less because they're too afraid of that aspect of them. So now they voluntarily set down the switch and they go married life. They put on 50 pounds, they develop erectile dysfunction and a porn addiction. Their body stops working. Their hormones stop pumping through their body. Their brain stops thinking. People like me become the enemy. They hide behind establishments. You understand the dangers of this? Because, like, honestly, I don't think I have a negative thing to say about anybody, really. Because you're too busy in your own life. You think about how rich that would be, you know? It almost feels like you're wasting your breath. So let's go back to the question, which is, for the woman that you desire, this is your counterpart here, your mirror reflection. Why are you not enough?
I'm not there for myself.
Yeah, so you already see her, and what do you hide? You guys could interrupt at any point. I don't mind. We'll just create some order after people start diving in.
When we asked a question about if you're happy, I went half and half. And if a half and half is 50% good and 50% bad about happy, I'm neutral, or I'm not invested in being happy because I'm completely flatlined. If the 50 and the 50 cancel out. And if my son had a trauma, then I would go out for 5 years and not talk to women because I was disqualifying myself. I would look at them and disqualify them first, like, oh, they're not pretty enough, they're not cute enough, they're not smart enough. And I caught myself projecting my distaste for myself by just making disqualifying judgments on others. And so the tragedy for me, it is to get isolated in the me, just staring at myself and saying, I'm not good enough, and then I can't see anybody because I've got this big mirror in front of my face.
Yeah. But now the consciousness of not making it about you, right? Because you can say, I'm not good enough, right? For the woman of my desires, the object of my desire, the object of the achievement, right? There's a level of achievement behind that. Yet what happens is you guys begin to, there's always something you direct yourself towards. But the thing about the goal is it refines you on the way. So the whole point isn't to get rid of the values. And I know I have a lot of people say that you just got to sell something that you don't believe in. You just got to become a fucking menace. And you just got to be the most selfish prick on planet Earth. There's a level of truth to that. What I'm saying is direct that towards your highest purpose and see how they're not in opposition. I started to become who I am when I realized that my relationship was a manifestation of what I wasn't. All of the shame that I felt against myself were around three things. What I wanted to do with my life, which is what I'm doing now. Sex, there was a lot of myself that I hid in relationship to that, and a lot of my personality. I am very, 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 very outspoken. And I typically don't really care about what other people think, and that was typically something about me growing up that made me very polarizing. But when I was in this relationship, what were the things that she rejected about me? Well, my faith and philosophy, which is what we're here sharing, right? My sexuality, the way I would approach her or express my love. And then, of course, the last one, which was all of the things that I am. And then, shocker, I could have just said it was about her and this is just the problem with the 21st century and my projection is objectively right and all of those things. By the way, it turns out, actually, a lot of the things that I actually saw in that relationship were things that people are suffering from objectively, But I ultimately don't think that the way that we solve this is by having these political campaigns dividing and dividing and dividing and dividing. And then you might see that it's like there's a split in our generation. There's more and more, there's like a disproportionate amount of people having sex, and then there's like a whole disproportionate amount of people who haven't even seen a vagina. And it's like, whoa, shit, that's not human. There's like typically a balance. There's no balance here. Why? Because there's an opposition, there's a lack of identification from both parties, right? The virgin looks at the hoe and goes, you're a slut for fucking guys, and I'm a righteous woman. And then the slut looks at the virgin going, you've never experienced anything about life, right? Really, there's this whole thing about understanding duality, right? Which is the mother isn't just composed of the woman that bears your children. She's composed of the dirty little slut. And if you don't have that in your marriage, you could say goodbye to it. Your wife should not just turn into a mother, she should turn into a MILF. And that's a sign of a healthy marriage. And then the more that happens, the more oxytocin you guys share with each other, the better the sex is. When a guy starts to release oxytocin, he starts to bond. So now it no longer becomes the one thing that got you in there, being a visual creature. You start to expand it, not an externalization, but an internalization. This is what men want. We want good sex. We're pretty simple, right? That's our motives. But you have to understand what makes good sex. Intimacy. Most of you guys have never seen yourself because you make it about yourself. See the distinction there? You're going to be able to separate things from your ego when you guys have what you call existential beliefs. Beliefs about you outside of your own experiences. Are you willing to make those true with enough adventure and enough rejection? Go for it, Alessandro.
So now the question is, which also links to what we discussed on Sunday, how does anyone experience oneself?
Beautiful.
Given that he had so many barriers before.
So there's a really good question there. I believe that how does one experience themselves outside of their own centricity, right?
Exactly.
Here it is. You guys will love this. You are not separate from all of existence. You're not. When I say yourself, I'm not just talking to Nova in Los Angeles, California. I'm talking to the thing that Nova is connected to directly. There's body, and then there's the existential in relationship to your body. You could experience life in two ways. Your body in relationship to the universe, and then your universe in relationship to your body. Have you guys ever listened to an album and have been sent out of your body before? It's such a good piece of music that you're experiencing something outside of your own experiences, right? But you're experiencing it as you, right? So you're kind of like, what's going on here? And then there's the other way around. Have you ever felt like a Superman? You feel so connected to something powerful, right? So you see, there's two ways that you could experience things. Now, what happens is you guys will begin to integrate both. You'll begin to become so present that you won't have an agenda. You will be so connected to both of those things. Now, often, if there's a lot of clutter and anxiety or scratch and noise, that means that you're typically blocked out by your ego, which means that your ego is going to be reinforced by a few things: insecurities, traumas, and fears. The thing about ego, it's the modern protective mechanism, which is why I know we talk about it so much and how it destroys relationships. Because there's a lot of traumas, insecurities, and fears that you haven't confronted because of this person that you need to be. You see that? Your ego is the thing that makes you need to be somebody to others. Do you want to know what I was at 21? I convinced people that I was successful, I was great with women, and that I was happy. I was not great with women. I was good at picking the right ones at the right time that never really satisfied me. If you asked me at the time, Naftali Moses, from ages 16 to 21, did any of the women that you were with really satisfy you? Did they really make you go, wow, you're gorgeous? Well, I'll tell you the ones that did. The ones I never slept with or made out with. Or the ones that I did and then ghosted me. Those ones did. And my girlfriend was a great little cushion to hit for my ego. So I was like, hey, she's kind of looks like the last girl that left, So I always had girlfriends after each ego blow. I never hit the bottom, so I never found myself, which is what we're going to talk about. Alessandro, you said it, which is don't separate yourself from all of the existential. Don't. That's where the meaning and purpose comes from. By the way, that's where where acceptance come from. Do you know why the thing I've noticed a lot about, I've been to seminars and I've seen a lot of the guys speaking, and I look at the people's lives and they're in the exact same place. Their acceptance is still within their bubble. You need something outside of you, but it is you. Can you believe that? You understand the kind of power you tap into will make you an egocentric, messianic, altruistic son of a bitch. Which is good, okay? But you're going to need to die, right? You're going to need to lose big. And that's exactly where you find yourself at the bottom. You know that you guys ever find yourself on that climb, that's that unnecessary climb? Because it seems to me like you're always here. I want you to flip the narrative on its ass. Stay there voluntarily. Watch what happens. You change. Do you know what the ego loves? Look at me, guys. I built my block tower this tall. Do you know what somebody who's coming from a place of authenticity does? This is something you started off, I can't remember who mentioned it, but it was the whole like, look at me, I'm confident, I've done these things, right? Peter, that was you. Which I also find is very interesting. If you guys don't confront the demons at the bottom, you never really develop belief. So I recently just hired a new salesman, and he's really good, very gifted. And he talked about, dude, there was so much wealth. And he said that to me, I'm like, I'm so excited. Go ahead, show me what you can do this week. There are so many people looking for help. If you can be the bridge, what a blessing that would be. Next day, everybody goes, sorry man, objective overcome. People were elites with the objective overcomes. And he was like overwhelmed. Seven consults, 0 sales. And he calls me, he goes, Naftali, what's happening? And I just go, how real was what you said yesterday? Then he went like this. And he was like, and I said, were those just emotions? Was that just your nice little high? Was that your dopamine drip bag? Or was it real? Was it just a feeling? Now, what do you need to make that true? Not your personal experiences, because what were his personal experiences? Dopamine crash. You need something to go, I'm going to stand for that belief. I'm going to fight. And you reach into what? It's like the existential. You reach into things that are beyond that. You go, no, I know what that is. And what do? You fight for it. How do you know your beliefs are real? You're sent to the bottom with them. You know, when I would help people in the beginning, it was like, Naftali, you're so amazing. All this social game, and I've gotten 3 dates this week. You've changed my life. And then what would happen after? Oh, I would see the devil in people. Oh, I would see darkness. That made me want to quit my job. I didn't even know that people were capable of saying and doing things like that. And then I fucking shake as I put down the phone. And I start to cry. And I'm like, now I go back to that high. And I go, wait, what were my personal experiences showing me? I could run from humanity as a whole. Because, by the way, I would run from humans like this, just personally. Based off my own traumas and experiences. I've been isolated. I was raised in an Orthodox Jewish school. Away from all of my family because we became religious. So that's part of the like religious checkbox, isolate, right? And so that made me the #1 porn watcher in Los Angeles, right? That also made me the #1 mute in LA. And I talk a lot, which just goes to show, Nova, there's a lot of shit I repressed. This is authentic, but it was out of my disbelief. So I had to really tap into something outside of my own experiences, which is why you need to be open to that kind of idea to get out of your ego. It exposes you to that. It puts you in what? Disbelief. But of course, you know your old habits are going to come back in. You're going to scrounge. You're going to turn into fucking Bilbo Baggins from Lord of the Rings the second you see the ring. Right? That's why we have each other. That's why we share those moments. You know a really good way to get a porn addict out of porn? Get him to share, hey, to their friends, just watched porn today, jerked off, burnt my 60-day streak. Sharing it. You know, same thing would happen to me. Like I hook up with a girl that doesn't really meet my value system. I go, okay, it happened. Whew, she gave me a call, you know? And then now I can really see a relationship with myself. I could ask back two questions. What made me do it? Why wasn't my belief strong enough? So I could actually understand the desire and meet it in the truest way possible, and then see the value and connect to it deeper. We work on two ends, and I think that's what a lot of people are forgetting. The anchor's holding you down and the thing you're striving towards. So this is going to be a lot about now the thing that we're going to get into for the rest of this, which is the woman that you desire is going to challenge you the most because you hide the most in the face of the thing you want the most. How do you improve then if it's not in the face of the ideal? Do you want to know what really made me start doing this work? I looked at my girlfriend and she rejected me for everything that I am. And I said, I'm going to be everything that I am if I get rejected over 100,000 times. That is when, and by the way, Peter, the mirror went, and where did I find myself? The bottom. What did I have at the bottom? Nothing. What did I always used to do? I'd be there in the dark and I'd scream for help and I'd look for the nearest narrative to take me to the top. And those are balloons. They pop under high altitude, right? Your ego loves those because it goes, I figured it out. The new breakthrough, right? As you go up to the top, it pops and you smack the bottom, and this time you're in twice as much pain, twice as deep, and you're like, why is this happening? And you look for the next thing, and then you're like, oh, God, right? And it's not even God. It's like whatever you made him. He's like your butler. And then you go up to the top and it pops again, and you're back at the bottom. So, when do you become real? Using my salesman analogy. You become real when you fight for the initial thing that you believe to be true, that was beyond your own beliefs and your own expectations. You have to fight for it. And then, of course, close some deals today. Oh, thank God I didn't give up, right? Some humility there. On your fucking knees. Thank God I didn't give up. And I thought about that myself, and there was all of who I am that you guys are seeing now, which is just in this infantile stage of who I'm going to be, which I look forward to every day. But it's not something I need to write a goal for. It's something I'm becoming due to the environments that I'm creating. Meeting Peter, meeting Nova, meeting Philip, and having, of course, Alessandro, Ravi. You guys are shaping me. This is the thing about a personal life. You know what you give, but you also know that the greatest teachers learn when they teach. Do you understand the synergy in that? There's no ego here. You guys will contribute something to this world that is going to be so unique. It will be essential to the logos, if you want to be Greek about it. So this was something that was very interesting, is that you guys aren't willing to face those things and fight for what you initially believed. You know, the highs need respect. So do the lows. Why do you run? I think that that's the thing that runs most people's nervous system, fear. You're still running. You're confirming it by still running. I made this analogy in one of the group recordings, which should be up. I recommend you guys watch it, that I would always run from this tiger until I realized that was the beast I needed to be in order to get to my dream. Of course, you play with a cat that scratches you, but you spend your whole life running from that cat, you'll never have the utility and contribution that it has. Is it dangerous? Yeah. Does it still run your system? Well, that's up to you. You better believe that there's something outside of your own experiences, which is why humility is very important. And also why conversation by which you aren't the center of attention is very important. That's why making a fool of yourself, even what something Max was mentioning, I'm telling people I don't know what I want. I don't like my job. And everybody going, what? You're making good money. That was me at 21. What? You make $70 a pop per client from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. Brother, you're living the dream. If the dream is meaningless, I'm fucking in hell. Because I'm not only alone, I'm cosmically alone. Because when I express my dissatisfactions, what are you met with? Invalidation of those dissatisfactions. Ooh, welcome to the dark. So this is the price. This is the price you guys need to pay if you want to be real. That the things that you stand by, you die by. The fakest motherfuckers start things, and they don't honor those things. Now, what I want you to do is still be the same fake motherfucker you are, but see when you walk, and listen to what you really say to yourself. And there is no woman on planet Earth, no being on planet Earth that could say harsher things. Because nobody understands you like you do. And I want you to listen to that voice until it sends you right back down to the bottom. This is how you guys create the most powerful framework. Are you real? Are you honest? Are you strong? Remember, you can't be if you're dishonest. You're just a world-class performer. You fool people. You're not strong. Go for it, Alessandro.
What do you mean about listening the part of yourself that is the most harsh? Because, for instance, for me, at least, okay, definitely there is the part of me that is very asshole. It's an asshole towards myself, of course. But it's something that, yes, on one side it motivates, but on the other side, if I do something wrong, it really reinforces, let's say, maybe the belief that I had, that if you do something wrong, it's. Well,
you need to be aware. You need to be aware of the initial belief that's true. This is why it's important to have peak states. It's important to have states by which you're really elevated, you're motivated, you're experiencing something beyond yourself, right? Because if I just expose you to tragedy and pain, then it would be very hard for you to experience anything outside of that. Then there are also some people just exposed to positive emotions. That doesn't really get them anywhere. So in relationship to your question, you need to understand the belief that you believe to be truest. Your current life, your environment, it does not support that. Because if it did, you'd be in a different environment. And I always find it so interesting that most people's lives are an embodiment of their beliefs that they've never confronted, that they still keep running from. And their whole system is just run off of fear, insecurity, doubts, and traumas, which means that their egos are probably impenetrable. But here, if you guys are here, then that means that's not the case. Something called, right? That's the voice that I'm talking about. Something said you need more of a microscope on your own behaviors. And this is the one thing that I really wanted to get into, Alessandro. If you want to be real, you need to be able to do the things that you would do at the bottom.
What do you mean, things that I will do at the bottom?
Okay, you're a performer. You play music. You love music. You connect to music. It lights your soul. Would you be willing to make music and post it on SoundCloud if there was one viewer and you gave it your all?
Okay.
Now, would you be willing to be all of who you are if there was no one to be there for you? That's what challenges you. That's a very challenging question, isn't it? You want to know when I became real? I did a drill with a coach of mine. And for me, I did everything for this desired woman. That was part of the process, right? But until I hit a wall, what was I feeling? Left rib pain, right? Which is like the symbolic symbol for your woman, right? That's your left rib. And I came to her just crying, and I was like, I can't do this, I was very similar to you, Peter, in a serial situation. My ego would always make it about me, these women. Why can't they just treat me well? And of course, she fucking gave me a good slap in the face. And she said, well, it sounds like, and she was trying to help. I was breaking down. My ego was breaking down. And she said, well, let's do this little drill. Put me in a trance. And what I saw was like this world generator of like matches for you if you did everything. Right? And I put it in and I go, Naftali Moses, where's my wife? ? How many women would be a good partner for Naftali Moses? And it loaded and loaded and loaded. Nothing in nearby area, expanded search. Loaded and loaded and loaded. Nothing in nearby area, expanded search. Went to the whole globe. Loading and loading. Number 0. You want to know what happened? I buckled and cried and screamed and stomped. I had a tantrum. And I'm talking about being a coach. I had a tantrum. And after that tantrum went and my ego fell apart, it literally fell apart like this. There's nothing. I asked myself a question. Would I do what I do that I believe is right regardless? Would I still live a beautiful life? Would I still do my best? Would I still love the woman that is there in front of me? Would I still have children? And if I died an 80-year-old bachelor, would I give back all I could? And something came to me. I got up, I looked at the number, I went like this to check if the number really mattered. And I was like, thank you, ma'am. And as I walked, the number turned to 1. And this time, it didn't own me. I was freed. You guys want freedom? You guys want to feel that? You want to experience it? You want to think like it? You want to be a product of it? You want to change the world? You want to write a book that matters? Start by being real. And I really noticed that the way that you are real is when if that number is 0, you would still do the right thing. You know, and I know a lot of you guys are Christians, and I think that there's a lot of truth in that. You know, if you'd be willing to die on a cross with the people that brought you up, betray you, and your whole society along with that publicly humiliates you, and you'd be willing to give it all up so that you can do the most truthful thing possible, well, that's how you find God. And really, that's what I'm here to do. I want you guys to find God. This is not the God of the Quran or the Christianity. I want you to find this thing that is undeniable, that is beyond your own comprehension, that you can now live with, that you are a part of, that you are not separate from. And most people are not willing to do it at the bottom because they're too afraid of rejection. Do you guys want to be real? I want that to be your focus. And I can give you a few more analogies. Before I had an Aston Martin, I had a beat up truck. And guess what? Every time I'd see a girl jogging, hey, you guys ever had that moment where you break your neck and you're like this on the fucking ground? You're like, that was the object of my desire, right? And then you have a whole list of narratives coming up, which is why the thing that's very interesting about men. Why are men such great achievers? We're wired different than women. Our relationship with women is different than with women's relationship with men. Very, very different. You know, a young boy sees a girl for the first time, they stand straight. You know, like you really want to make a boys' school work, put a hot girl in there. They're all going to start posturing and start presenting talents and skills and attributes, right? So you're telling me that the woman doesn't deeply challenge us, inspire us, invoke something that we need in ourselves. Something that gives us purpose and fulfillment. Something that we need to have at the highest capacity in order to see our highest capacity. It's not just about how hot your chick is it? It's about how meaningful it is to have the feminine in your life in direct relationship to the masculine, because you guys aren't separate. But it starts with two people who are willing to go on that journey for one another. So I found myself in this, well, it's not even really so much about myself. I was in the truck and I saw this beautiful jogger, and this thing went through my head, and it was like, well, what did I talk about to my friends? I wanted to get an Aston Martin, right? And they would all go, bro, that's a $300,000 car. What are you doing? Right? Everybody had an answer. But I had this belief, right? Oh, you close a big deal? Well, congratulations. That belief goes up, right? You're reinforcing it. Aston Martin Tuesday, right? And what I would do is I would often tell myself, oh, I'm going to make a playlist for the car when I get it. And I was like, no. I'm going to make the playlist like I'm in the car today. Okay. What would I do if I was in that car? I asked myself that question. How would I be? Who would I act? Now, that's the thing about an ideal. Once I get it, not when I get it, once I get it, who would I be? Let me become that person. And so I said, you know, in the car, well, you pull up to a hot girl, she's going to respond, turn her head, maybe flick her hair and be like, what are you doing, cowboy? Right? You know, but in a beat up Chevy Silverado, she might go, ew, creep, run. And I asked myself a question. How real are you, Naftali? Do you show up for your desires? Or you just show up for them when other people accept you? And I U-turned and I said, what would I do when I'm most real? When I have all the things that I desire? And I said, I would do the thing that is most true for myself, this desire. And I pull over in the truck. I go, hey, excuse me, miss. She's like, what? I'm like, what's her name? Veronica. Nice to meet you. I know you're running. I'll text you later. We can figure this out. She's like, sounds good. And so now you went from confirming the bias in your head that you needed the car. What do you think happened when I got the car? What did it offer me except being a vehicle and a symbol of achievement for myself? It offered me quite literally nothing, because there was nothing I couldn't do in a beat-up truck wearing bell-bottoms and Hawaiian button-downs. So, I guess the Armani suit with the Aston will pair very nice. Because ultimately, we all need things. We need your desires. We need them. You know, Nova, you need them Fuck, you need them. But you also need some humility in this process. You're going to get fucking slaughtered. I want you to, but I want there at least to be a place by which you could express the things on the bottom that you have no relationship with, that you refuse to go to. Because right now you're like hit in the middle, your head's on the roof, and you're like, I'm so fucking close. And you're holding yourself there on these dip bars with 2,000 pounds tied to your ankles. You're not going to pop off. You're going to fall apart. Your body is going to fatigue. And you're going to fall all the way down to the bottom. And you're going to have no intention. And those demons are going to rip you apart. What I'm saying is, get familiar with those demons. Get familiar with you. Find the parts of you that would be an animal for yourself because you love you so much. You know, don't look for the hot air balloons in the elevators. Look for that steady uphill. Look for it and find it. Feel it. Why is this any worse than this life at the top? You're not real. Your life at the top is a fucking performance that you convince everybody about. And it keeps you lost, it keeps you lonely, it keeps you disconnected, it keeps you sad, it keeps you in cycles. This is not the life you want. You want something real, because that's all that matters. And I'm saying this from a part of me so deep in my soul because it's true. But who's going to have just a little bit of courage? Something beyond you, something that makes this maybe mean something. Because all you have right now is not worth anything. So perhaps maybe we could do something today to just maybe cut those ropes. Find what's here. You guys have fallen apart many times. You, Nova, Alessandro, Ravi, Philip, there's no question about it. You have Peter. You're probably the forerunner of falling apart. You guys don't need to do it alone. You don't. And I want you guys to find the beauty of this. Do you want to know the best days of my life that I can consciously remember? Or the days that I decided to be real? I was not a trainer anymore. I did not have a fitness business. I told people what I wanted to do. I don't think that the ideal is ever something that you're going to just connect with immediately. You change along the way. But a general direction that you connect to is more than enough. The journey starts. The cycles break. My old cycles broke. I took all the money I had and I spent it on myself. All of it. I needed to experience freedom once. I needed to start becoming someone, not doing things. And I think there's a very big distinction there. After that happened, my hair grew back. That was pretty cool. And my skin disease is no longer, it's stationary. It's not something that caresses my body. And I was able to do something that was against everybody. I wanted to be free more than anything. I wanted to be free. And the only way that you guys can truly be free is when you're at the bottom. Because now the top is no longer something you attach to, and the bottom is no longer something you run from. Meaning, you live with yourself in your totality, and everything that you do, you direct towards your highest purpose.